Baruch here with genConnect.com, and we're talking today with Tom Yellin, the executive producer of Girl Rising and the president of the documentary group. How are you, Mr. Yellin?
Good.
Thanks for being here with us.
Pleasure.
You have had a really incredible career in media, and you've made a very clear decision to pursue a career that combines both media and advocacy. Tell me about that decision.
Well, I spent years and years in network news, making long form and short form things about important stories. And one of the most important I ever worked on was stories about tobacco and about how tobacco companies manipulate nicotine levels to keep people addicted. That's the secret that makes cigarettes so successful. We were sued by Philip Morris for billions of dollars, and ultimately ABC and Cap Cities settled out of court, which I thought was appalling. We weren't doing that as advocacy, and yet it unleashed a tremendous amount of change in the way tobacco is treated. And I think if you look at FDA just decided to use the regulatory power, which they only got a couple of years ago, to control what's in cigarettes, you trace that back, you can look directly at our reporting. So I participated in journalism that turned into social change, but I've never done it on purpose. Until Girl Rising. Girl Rising grew out of research we did about how investing in girls is the most powerful single thing you can do to make the world a better place. And when we discovered that fact, we were just doing research generally about poverty eradication. When we discovered that fact, me and my team felt a kind of responsibility to do something with it. And the world is so different now in media. If you just tell your story, the odds are it gets lost in the clutter. So we made a very conscious decision to try to build a campaign to spread this idea as far and wide as possible and advocate for the change that's a result. And it was a very conscious decision, and we didn't do it lightly.
What are the risks of making that sort of decision?
Well, I don't believe in journalism as advocacy. I think it's a bad idea for the most part, and I wouldn't do it unless I felt the rewards outweighed the risk. The risk is that you give over to the journalist this authority to sort of dictate, or at least attempt to dictate, how the world behaves, and I don't think journalists should have that. I think journalists should be truth tellers. But if the truth itself, by the very importance of it and the power of it, is so compelling, then I think the balance changes a little bit. And really, what we're talking about is the most basic fundamental rights of a human being to live a complete life. That's what Girl Rising is about. That's what the campaign to educate and empower girls globally is about. And in that case, there's sort of like no other side. I mean, unless you're a radical Talibanista, or whatever the right term would be, unless you're a radical member of the Taliban, there's really no opposition to the notion that girls ought to live full lives.
What inspires you as you create these projects?
Well, I'd like to say the sort of cynical answer is this is a job, and I do it as a way to earn a good living, but I keep making choices that put the content in front of the business. And I'm not sure, don't tell my investors that, please, and people who support my business, but that's what I keep doing. I mean, I grew up in the South in the 60s and the 70s, and my parents were very involved in the civil rights movement. And I think working for social change is one of the things you sort of should do. And one of the virtues of being a journalist is you get to peek around all kinds of corners in the world. And when you discover things that you think need to be fixed, one way to do it is just tell the story. The truth will set us free. Just by shedding light on dark corners, you're doing good in certain ways. But occasionally, and this is really the first time in my career with Girl Rising, occasionally you come upon a situation in which just telling the story isn't enough. You've got to tell the story, and then you've got to make sure as many people hear it as possible. Then you've got to also give people a way to act. And that's what we've attempted to do with Girl Rising.
Thank you so much, Tom Yellin.
Great,
and for more with Tom Yellin and to learn more about combining advocacy and media, be sure to check out genConnect.com.